Hi everyone, welcome back to DevDojo Academy and welcome back to Introduction to Programming using Java. Well, continuing the topics about conditionals, we have a small exercise with some challenges. So the exercise is pretty straightforward. If given a salary, if the salary is greater than 5,000, just print in the console the value of 30% of the salary. Otherwise, print only 50% of the salary's value. Then we have two challenges. One, I would like you to use only one system out println to print the value. And the second challenge is also using just one system out println to also print if it's 15 or 30%. Okay, so let's come back here. Right click, new class, exercise, conditionals 01, because probably we'll have more than one exercise about conditionals. Then we know how to start, public static void main, and then we go back into the exercise, we copy this, and we add here so we don't have to keep alt tabbing all the time. Okay, given a salary. When we read given, it means that we want to store. So right now we are always inputting value, but we are going to see in future videos how we can ask for the value directly in the console. Okay, so given a salary, we can use double. We used float, but now let's use double. And we have here salary. Now the salary, let's initialize with 12,000, the salary that everybody will get after they finish all the DevDojo course. And then we have the condition. So when you see if, there is no other option. If the salary is greater than 5,000, then we have to print the 30% of the salary. Well, we have two options. We can either create a boolean is greater than is greater than 5,000, or we can do it directly. So let's do directly. So if the salary is greater, you see greater, not greater and equals then. So basically, if it's greater, then just greater. Then we will use here the 5,000 to print a message. So there are two options. We are writing if salary is greater than 5,000, do something like this. But we could also use the inverse logic. So basically, if the salary is lower than 5,000, we do this first. So it's up to you where you want to start. But since we have the if right here saying if it's greater than 5,000, I will keep the if here. So let's first do the exercise as it's asking for, and then we are going to do the second part of the challenge. So I want to store the value. So we have two options. We can either do everything directly into a println. Let's do here. So for example, let's see. We have to print only the value. So let's say here that we are going to print, hey, this is 30% and plus, just give one space here, 30%, we can do a math. But remember, we know what happens if I try to do a math here. So for example, if I try to have like 5,000 and then here we are going to use 0.3. So let's see what's going to happen. Control Shift F10. And then we have here exactly what we were looking for. So Java was able to identify that we have like a math going on here. And then it later on just concatenated everything. If you want to make things a little bit more explicit, you just add here a parenthesis. And then you press Ctrl Alt L to organize your code, and then Ctrl Shift F10. You can see that we have exactly the same result. But this can get pretty confusing. Why? Because you are doing math when technically your purpose of println is just to print something. So let's try to avoid this and let's do something. Let's create here a double, and we are going to do the following. So I used here 5,000, but actually this is wrong, right? We should use salary. Salary. So we do get the same result here, and if we remove the parentheses, there you go. So it's working the same way. So coming back here, I don't want to do the math directly inside the println. I want to store these results. So basically I'm going to create here double, and this will be the result. or you can say like the percentage value, but in this case, let's just put result. And what is the result? The result is this, exactly what we have here, but we don't need parentheses because now we are doing the math right here. And then it becomes even more readable having something like this. So we know that the result is 0.3. So we have the first one, and now we have the second one. That's basically else. It's a simple condition. If it's greater than 5,000, it's just print the value of 30%. If not, just print the value of 15%. And then here, else. And then this is where it starts getting interesting. Look at this. Result, salary, 0.15. So we then, oops. How are you able to create two variables? You said that we have to create a unique identifier. So first, let's finish the exercise, and then we are going to see how this is working. So we just write here 15%, and now we have here Ctrl-Shift F10. We will have the same 30%, but if we lower this to 2,000, Ctrl-Shift F10, we have here 300. Okay, so first, William, how can you create two variables with the same name? Because you said if I try to create like int salary here, I'm going to have a problem. What's the problem? The salary is already defined in the scope. So we are going to go into details about the scope, but you have to understand for now that scope is your block. Every time you open the curly braces and you close up a curly braces, you are within a scope. So if I have salary here, what's the closest curly braces above salary? Is this one. How do you know the scope of this one? It closes here. So you can even use IntelliJ. So the scope is this one. It means that everything down the scope, I cannot create another variable. So the if and the else, they are inside the scope of the static void main. This means that if I come here and I try to create int salary, we are going to have exactly the same problem. Why? Because the salary, the double salary, this name was used in a broader scope. Now, if you come here into the if, what's going to happen here? We have here the double result. But if you look at the scope, the block of this if, it starts here and it finishes here. So if you click right here, you will see technically everything that's here is within the if scope. So everything that you are creating inside the if scope, basically it will die at the end of the scope. It means I can create again this double result. But if I try to create another double result, either here or there, then we are going to have a problem. Why do we have a problem? Because we already have this variable declaration inside the scope. So this is regarding variable declarations. You cannot declare two variables within the same scope with the same name, but you can reuse them. For example, we are reusing salary. So salary here is 2,000. And then we have here just using the salary, but we can reassign values to a variable. For example, we can get here, for example, I would say that now result is 0. William, how can you actually use result again? Because now I am not assigning, I'm not creating, declaring a new variable. What I'm doing, I have the variable declaration, I have a value. So this is the point where we draw something. So let's draw something here. So we have our memory here. Let's add here a text and we have result. Okay, so when we have the first result, if we come back here and we put to 12,000, we have not here. Let me I just press Ctrl/ to comment this out, just so I can get the value. So if I press Ctrl/ again, it will comment the entire line. Okay, so what I want to explain is about variable declaration and a variable, let's say we are reutilizing or using again, we are reassigning a value to a variable. So when we first declare this variable, we are already assigning something. That's basically 30% of the salary. So at the line 14, what's happening is, if I come back here, we have here a space in memory, where the space in memory has 3600. Okay, this is happening at line 14. So this here is line 14. Now, what happens on line 15? On line 15, if I come back here, I'm saying now result will be 0. So basically, instead of creating again, I'm just saying that the space in memory used by result will be 0. So on line 15, what's going to happen? I'm reassigning a new value to this space in memory. I'm not declaring a new variable or trying to declare again. I'm just reusing them. So it's like a reference. And then we are saying, hey, now it's 0. That's why if we execute this, the result is 0. So we are using the variable instead of declaring the variable. So that's the difference. When we are using, you use it without having the type before, like we did here for salary or we did here for result. We are using, but in this case, we are also reassigning some value. So basically we are saying, hey, now just override whatever I have in memory with the value that I have assigned here. So about the scopes, now that you understand that when you declare something in a broader scope, the scopes that are inside, you cannot redeclare a variable with the same name. But when you declare something within, let's say, a small scope, outside that scope, you can reuse. So if I want to reuse double result here, and say, for example, that this is 10 or 20, yeah, it works. I'm declaring again, so it looks like I'm declaring double result, double result, double result, but each one of them, they are in their own scope. So after, and we can do something like this. I will put a breakpoint, and then I will press Shift F9. And you are going to see, we have salary, then we have double result, and then we are going to print, and you see that the variable was completely removed. Why? Because once the scope is finished, Java will just clean up everything that happened inside that scope. Every variable declaration, every variable initialization. And in the console, we do, of course, have, because after we print it will stay there. But regarding the variables, they're gone. But you see that the salary is still there. Even though we finished these scopes, the salary is still 12,000. It's still here. And then we are creating another result, and then it's still available. Okay, so technically we can say this is the first part of the exercise. If you come here, we have here, we are doing this. If the salary is greater than 5,000, just print in the console 30% of the value. And then, otherwise, we are going to print only 15%. But then we have the challenge. So only use one system print out ln to print the value. So this is the challenge. So if I come here and I say, okay, I want to print the value, and I just print result, what's going to happen? This is going to have a compilation error. Why? Because remember, after you finished these scopes, the result doesn't exist. So Java doesn't understand, hey, what is this result? Because I don't know what is here. So what we have to do, we have to move this out. Basically, we have to put this double result in a broader scope. So we are going to do this. We are going to declare result. Hey, result. Now I'm just declaring. In Java, when you are working with what we call local variables, you don't have to worry about that now. You always have to initialize. You always need to give something like a value, any value to that variable. So I'm just initializing with 0. So at line 13, I'm declaring a variable, and I'm allocating a space in memory with 0 on it, in it. Okay, so now we have two problems here and here. Why is that? Because we cannot declare, because it was declared already. So this is the broader scope. When we go inside the smaller scope, they are still available for us. So what we have to do, basically just have to remove here. Remove the double and remove the double. So looks like now everything is working. You see that they say, hey, you don't have to initialize, because if and else will always initialize the result. Because if and else, if is not executed, else will be executed. If executed, else will not be. So by the time we reach line 22, result will always be initialized. But as good practice, always give a value when you are declaring a variable. If you remove the else, you will see here, for example, that this might give you some problems, especially if the salary, for example, is lower. So if the salary is like 1,000, and you remove here the 0, You see, we have a problem with the results saying, hey, there is a chance that you are not initializing. By the time I reach line 19, this is not initialized. Even though if you put here 12,000, even though you know that's going to the if, there is a chance that when it reaches line 19, the result variable will never have anything inside. So Java do not allow that. That's why it's a good practice to have it initialized. Okay, so coming back here to the else. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I'm initializing here, creating initialize with 0. Then when it reaches this line, it's going to give 30%, and or actually when it reaches this line, it's going to give 15%. By the time I get to line 22, we already have a result. So in this case, you can see here, the result is 3600. It will never replace because if and else can never be executed at the same time. So if I put here 2000 and I execute again, you are going to see that now we have 15%. Okay, so this is the first part of the challenge. Only use one system print out ln to print the value. And then the second challenge is still using one system out print ln, also print if it's 15 or 30%. So we know how it works. We just have to store these values inside a string. So string, and then we can give here percentage value, and we initialize with empty string. And here, instead of having like this, what we are going to do, we are going to have percentage value, and then we could either store everything. It's up to you. So let me show you. We have here 30%. And I will copy this percentage value here and add it here. And here is 15%. And I'm going to remove this line. And now I will just call here percentage value plus, just give a equal sign and plus. So it will print either 30 or 15, and then equal sign, and then the result. Control Shift F10. And we have here exactly what we had before. If we put 12,000, we have exactly what we had before, but we are only using one print ln. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more different, you have another option. What's that option? You do everything here. So percentage value, you can do something like this. And then you do concatenation right here, plus result. Same thing here, plus result. And then, instead of having this down below, you just print the percentage value. Control Shift F10. You have the same result. If we remove 1 and have only 2000, we have 15%. So basically, as you can see, there are several ways to solve the same problem. So in the end, especially now that you are learning how to get started with programming, it doesn't matter how you do it. The important thing is get it done right, and then you do what we call refactoring. You start changing until you get things a little bit more readable, sometimes a little bit with better performance. But the important thing for now is make it work. It doesn't matter if it's big, if it's ugly, as long as it's working, we can always improve. So this is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Bye bye.